The King's Bricks by Thomas, Andrew, and Jonathan. The King's Bricks, Episode 2. Reality. A touchy subject due to its nature, which is that it's not a physical thing, it being a word and all. We're going to need to define reality before we can actually begin to argue for the proofs of God. Definition. Reality in itself is, and I quote our great Google overlords, the world or the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. Example, he refuses to face reality. One popular mind-bender that I've heard recently is that the universe could have been created yesterday, or even hours ago. You and everyone else would have memories that were created with you. You can't prove that the world was not made yesterday, so you can either A, accept it and believe that it was created yesterday, or B, reject and refuse to believe that it was created yesterday. But this is beside the point. It's just interesting. Reality, at least in my little experience, is based on how an individual perceives the world around them. We can't prove that anyone else's reality is wrong because we can't perceive things like they do. There was this quote a long time ago by an old man named Rene Descartes, at least I think that's how it's pronounced. And the quote says this, "I think, therefore I am." This, in simple terms, means that the only thing you can actually know for fact is your own existence. Still lost? Think this thought. Hello, me. I am real. I know I am real because I can hear myself think. If someone ever says that they can't hear themselves think, then you may assume that they don't exist. Jokes aside, in order for anyone to get anywhere, we must make assumptions. Kids, for those who don't know, assumptions are when you decide something is real without proof. One thing that I have found out is that you with someone if they don't think you exist. All these assumptions that we will lay down are not likely to be controversial, which means something that people will not be opposed to or reject. In fact, you may agree with all of them. Assumption number 1. The things that we call other people are real, and they have their own perception of reality. Assumption number 2. Even if a physical object is not within my perception, it still remains to exist. Number 2 is actually very interesting because at certain ages for humans, especially when we're young, we cannot actually make this assumption. The brain has not learned that things exist if they are not seen or perceived. Assumption number 3. There are morals in which we follow basic rights and wrongs that we perceive to make sense. An example many of us unknowingly follow are laws of logic. For the kids who don't know, a moral is a person's standards or behavior or beliefs concerning what is and is not acceptable for them to do. If your parents tell you not to steal, it's because most people consider it to be wrong. Well, why is it wrong? Someone made the thing that you're stealing. They lose money when you take the thing because they can no longer sell it. In the end, a wrong thing is considered wrong when it hurts people. Most of the time. If you don't agree with these assumptions or think I may have missed a few, let me know. Most people will have a slight issue with the third assumption. All too many people think that they can make their own morals. But we'll have an episode on that by itself, because it's a big problem in the world. And also a really good argument. But let's close with this.
Wait, we're not done yet. Hi, it's me,
the great and powerful
Andrew, from Reality. There's a little more we need to look at. Reality is a very touchy subject indeed. However, there is a big difference between someone's perspective and outlook on life and someone's reality itself. Reality is how things are, their perspective is their belief of the things that exist, opinions of the things in life. To put this in perspective, think of a fossil. We have one fact: the fossil exists in reality. How it got to the fossilized state it's in is where perspective comes in. Was the fossil fossilized in a fast amount of time with lots of sediments being suddenly piled up on top of the organism, or were the sediments slowly piled up on the remains of a dead organism over a long period of time? We each have a different perspective of how we view the facts. The thing is, we can't all be right. Two contradictory ideas cannot logically simultaneously exist. This is because the law of non-contradiction. Let me give you another example. There's a red apple. Think of the red apple. Now I come in and say the apple is green. I have a different perspective than you. We can't both logically be correct, so one of us must be wrong. Now someone tells me I learned my colors wrong, but in my perspective, you learned your colors wrong. Who is right? Most would say that you are right because the red apple is red. Although certain people may have different brain capabilities, like sight or mental health, which prohibits them from being able to view reality as we do. But assuming that you and I are both mentally and visually healthy, one of us must be wrong. However, I cannot guarantee that I am mentally healthy, or a crazed lunatic for that matter, but that is beside the point. Moving on. We can compare the facts and say that you are right by majority population, but how do we know the majority population is right? We'd have to go back to the creator of the English language, which would be a very difficult task. Only if we went back to who had authority over the English language, the creator of it, would we know which label is right. We can only be right if there is some greater authority that shows us we're right. Luckily for us, we don't have silly debates over the color of the apple every day. That is because most of us assume that red, the label, is the color it is. But what I currently want you to take away from this episode is that you exist. We all have perspectives of reality, and that we can only be sure that our perspectives are right using authority greater than ours. We will go over greater authorities and what counts as a greater authority in later episodes. Back to you, Jonathan.
Let's just quickly recap what we've learned so far. Number 1. Perspective is just an opinion. Reality is the world as it is. Our perspectives come from reality. Number 2. We can't prove someone's perspective is wrong unless we both make assumptions about our world, or we find an authority higher than the subject. Number 3. We can assume that we all exist in reality due to our own self-awareness. I leave you with a simple poem to remember when laying in bed and contemplating existence. Roses are red, violets are blue. I exist, and so do you. And remember, if you have questions, ask. And thanks for watching. Let's be honest, it's the year 2021, which will seem like a really old year for all the people from the future who are watching. But besides the point, you guys know how to use YouTube, so do whatever you want. I don't care.